Midnight on Earth podcast with your host, Jake Weaver. Engineered by Cedric Swan. Hey everybody, we are back with another episode of Midnight on Earth. I'm your host, Jake Weaver, and we are here to bring you more knowledge, more light, and more love, and more spectacular guests. We have Vish Chatterji here. He's going to teach us about Vedic Astrology. I know about Western Astrology. I did not know a lot about Vedic Astrology. I read his amazing book. I know a lot more now, but we're going to talk to him in just a second. But first, I need you to do something for me. Follow me on Instagram at midnight_on_earth. That is the address. You can follow me there. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you go to get your podcasts, click that button that connects us so you know exactly what's going on. You want to know about Vedic astrology? Boom. You get that notification. You're there with us in some quantum sense. And tell a friend, tell someone that you know that loves these type of podcasts. You know their frequency. You know our frequency. Match those frequencies for me. Bring them here. midnightonearth.com. Okay, we're going to talk to Vish in just a second, but I have to read his bio, so here we go. After a successful career as an engineer, executive, and entrepreneur, Vish Chatterji is honoring his sole purpose as an East meets West executive coach and Vedic teacher. He helps people find light in their work through the wisdom of his ancestors, leveraging the traditions of yoga, meditation, Ayurveda, Vedic philosophy, and Jyotish, which is Vedic astrology. His coaching practice, Head and Heart Insights, serves clients across the globe, and he is a faculty coach and educator for the Berkeley Executive Coaching Institute at UC Berkeley. He was born in the bustling city of Hong Kong to Indian parents who traveled to over 50 countries and can get by in 7 languages. Wow. He resides in Redondo Beach, California, within a hike ride to the Pacific Ocean. He's a married father of 3 and is often found cooking with the family, working in the garden, and tinkering in the garage. Wow, what a cool guy, right? Vish has held public office as a board director for the Beach Cities Health District in LA and is the author of the Business Casual Yogi, Take Charge of Your Body, Mind, and Career. And what we're going to talk about today, the newly released Astrology Decoded, the secret science of India's sages. And he's here with us. Hello, Vish. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Jake. I'm so excited to be on your show, and thank you for that kind introduction and your wonderful energy.
Well, we're here to give people good information and humanity. We're on a path of evolution. It seems even in the Vedic text, from then to now, it talks about humanity is moving into the golden age, out of the Kali Yuga into something better, and everything and everyone is playing a part in that. It's really a great time. It's a good time to be alive.
Yeah. Jake, if you don't mind, before we get started, I'd like to just chant an invocation.
Sure.
So in the Vedic tradition, we realize that none of us, it's not my knowledge, right? So I wrote a book, but it's not my knowledge.
Right.
It's my interpretation of a knowledge system that has existed for thousands and thousands of years, maybe 15,000, 20,000 years or more. And a lot of that knowledge system resides in a deity in Vedic tradition we call Ganesh, the elephant-headed god. And we'll talk about it a bit more once we get into it, but I'd like to just do an invocation to him.
Sure.
Because he ensures that we don't get too stuck in our head. His head is chopped off.
Right.
That's one of the things about Ganesh. So you don't get too stuck in your head and you kind of ascend beyond to a higher plane. So we make that consciousness channel through us. So I invite all of you that are watching or listening to just take a moment, close your eyes, and just enjoy this invocation. Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarva Karyeshu Sarvada. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Just all of you feeling your consciousness just settle down, your body, your mind, and your higher spirit integrating for our discussion today. Go ahead and open your eyes.
That felt amazing. What a great frequency that invokes in itself. The Ganesh frequency, remover of obstacles, incredible story.
And bringing in some help, right? So I travel a lot in India, and when in very remote areas of India, when you go through these jungle roads, sometimes trees will fall down and block the road. And it's only a road to get to the place you're trying to go to. So they call them the elephants. And the elephants come in and they take their trunk and they lift up the log and they move the log out of the way and the road is clear. And so elephants are seen as the removers of obstacles on a road. And this archetype of Ganesh is the archetype of the remover of obstacles. And so most people pray to him for relief in getting through obstacles or having a clear pathway. But he holds a very special role in Vedic astrology. And his big belly is the repository of the entire universe worth of knowledge. So if you ever see Ganesh, he always has this big, big belly, and that belly holds all the knowledge. And he has these big, big ears, which allows him to really listen carefully. And so as an astrologer, my work is to not only have the repository of knowledge, but to really listen and hear what a client of mine might be going through and try to understand their life, their situation, try to really see them. And then, of course, apply some kind of a remedy, some kind of a relief from that particular challenge they're going through. So in a way, I'm helping people get through their obstacles. So the archetype is the remover of obstacles, but the one who has the knowledge, but also the one who listens. It's kind of a trifecta of things that is required.
They're all vital components in that healing process. You have to be able to listen to process the information. And that's, in a way, what Vedic astrology does differently than Western astrology. It focuses on creating a pathway to a remedy. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's just very briefly give people an understanding of what Vedic astrology is and how it compares to Western astrology.
Yeah, so Vedic astrology, we believe, probably was conceived maybe 15,000 years ago by the ancient rishis of India. And the rishis are the seers. They were these very wise, enlightened, sort of super worldly beings. It's like, in today's day, you have people who are psychics or mediums, and they have these little bits and pieces of power, but not in a complete way. But imagine that they have all the powers in a complete way. These were these, superhumans that lived in the Indus River Valley civilization, the base of the Western Himalayas near India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, that area. And these were people that in deep, deep states of meditation, deep states of awareness, they could almost hear the secrets of the universe. And they would tune in and understand the very essence and framework of what makes our universe, what makes our consciousness what it is. And they developed a system of human understanding, universal understanding, that then became codified in these traditions, the Vedic astrology tradition, the yoga tradition, the Ayurveda mind-body medicines tradition, the meditation tradition. So all these systems that came from ancient India were developed by these seers from 15,000 years plus. Wow. And then Western astrology sort of came about maybe 2,000 years ago. So it's sort of this derivative thing, I believe. And one of the biggest differences that I've come across is Western astrology is sort of this divorced individual system. It's like, okay, here's your Western astrology chart, and that's all I got for you. But in Vedic astrology, there's your chart, but there's this whole ancillary group of systems like the yoga. So if you have a problem in your chart, here are some mantras you can practice to improve that energy. Because there's a whole mantra tradition. Here's a yogic technique you can use to alleviate the energy. Here's a diet and lifestyle regimen based on Ayurveda that can remedy that issue. So Vedic astrology is sort of integrated with this whole universe of other systems that aid it. And then, of course, the fundamental difference in the math, right? So Western astrology doesn't actually map to observable positions of planets in the sky. And Vedic astrology uses a math that actually lines up with what you see in the sky. So if I'm looking at somebody's chart and I were to take my eyes off the computer screen and look at the sky, I would see the same thing in the sky that I'm seeing on my map on the screen.
Interesting.
So there's a lot there, right?
There is. No, there's a lot to unpack. And also it's focused on the ego. Western astrology is more egocentric. This is focusing on the energetic being, the three-phase being, the mind, body, spirit, or as you say, the subtle, the mystical, and the casual bodies. Like those aspects, this is focusing on all of those.
Yeah. So, Matt, in Western culture, we say body, mind, spirit.
Right.
In Vedic system, we would say you have your body, which is your joints and bones and muscles. And then you have a subtle body that's your emotions and kind of your energy and your thinking and your intellect. And then we have a causal body that is a layer of your deeper soul. And so Vedic astrology understands that you have these three layers of being and how to tackle those different layers in different ways. Whereas the Western astrology is really focused on your psychology.
Right.
What's your psychology?
Exactly.
Who are you? What drives you this way? But because the math is off, and that I've always wondered, like, why was I so skeptical about Western astrology? I was skeptical about astrology in general. I mean, if you said the word astrology to me in 10 years, I'd be like, what are you talking about? That's kind of mumbo jumbo. I don't believe in that stuff. And I think part of the reason is I would look at a horoscope in a Western magazine or a Western book, and I would say, you know what? I could apply any of those things to myself. They all kind of match. But just because I'm born in this month, I pick one and then I start self-selecting towards it. And it's almost like I changed my psychology and personality to match what everybody's telling me I'm supposed to be. And so that's kind of the ego level saying, hey, I'm born in this month. I'm part of the Leo team. Therefore, every time I read about Leo, I'm going to reinforce that myself and I'm going to act like a Leo. But then the math that said you're a Leo is actually not correct.
Right.
So in India, we're like, all these Westerners are running around with this identity crisis. They don't really know who they are. And because it's an ego-driven system. But in the Vedic system, we really look at what was the constellation of stars rising on the eastern horizon at the exact moment of your birth. So you can't, if you tell somebody what month you're born, it doesn't mean anything in Vedic astrology. You need to know the exact time, the exact location, so you can say that when that soul incarnated this time around, what were the stars casting their energy on that new incarnation of a human being? And that really determines that journey of that soul.
I have to totally agree with you here because I've often felt like when you're born, how you're born, your astrological coordinates determine what spirit and what life you're taking. Like in order for the certain frequency of light being to manifest at a certain place to receive the certain messages that are in role that it was destined for, there's coordinates, there's influence by these stars. And this is what we're talking about. And that's so huge. And I have to agree with you again, questioning, I should say, Western astrology, because as we explore the solar system with telescopes and other things, we're finding over 500 planetary objects. And there's some smaller dwarf planets that they're calling dwarf planets, or even smaller than dwarf planets, that have moons, and there's other things. Our solar system itself, over 500 planetary objects. And then are they taken into consideration when you think about that? Vedic astrology seems to just get at the heart of the matter, and it's very present to the moment.
Yeah, a couple of things I want to react to that. I mean, brilliant insight, Jake. You're right. In Western astrology, you call it a sign, because it's not really real. It's a sign. They've called it a sign. Whereas we call it, the translation is more of a constellation, an actual constellation of stars. But we use the word Rashi. The Sanskrit word Rashi means a heap of energy being emitted by the constellation. So we see them as energetic clusters. Now, in a very simple way for our human mind, we can say I was born and on the eastern horizon, there were some stars and they showered me with some energy, and that energy wave activated certain things in my soul journey or life. And that's the simplistic way. And I agree with that. But a more complex way to think about it, and this is sort of, where we get a little bit more into the Vedic philosophy, is the soul is super intelligent. The soul, your soul, my soul, everybody listening, all of our souls are connected. The soul is connected to one supreme energy called Brahman, right? And so the soul is super intelligent and able to make choices as it needs to go through experiences that it needs to experience. So the soul actually figures out and says, okay, it's going to go through multiple incarnations. And in each incarnation as a human being within the human realm, it's going to say, I need to have this set of lessons, this set of difficulties, challenges, and trials and tribulations, all of it. And so the soul says, what is the right circumstance to be born into so that my soul can learn the lessons it needs to learn? So in a way, the soul almost chooses its birth.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, yes. And so many spiritual people talk about that. We choose our lives. Yes, we totally choose every aspect of our life because, like you said, that higher soul version of us knows the lessons that we need to unfold over multiple lifetimes.
Right. And the we, when you say we choose, it's the soul choosing, not our mind and intellect, which is very, very minuscule compared to the intelligence of the soul. So when the soul incarnates, and they say in the Vedic tradition, what is inside is outside. What is the universe? You are the universe. Like a Deepak Chopra would always say, you are the universe. And I'm like, what do you mean by that? You are the universe. Well, the universe, what's out there is in here. What's in here is out there. So when the soul incarnates and becomes a human, at that moment, if we look at the heavens, and I, as this, small-minded compared to my soul astrologer, says, okay, let me put together a map of the stars, a map of the universe at the moment you were born. And based on those positions, I can try to interpret with my little mind what your supreme soul was actually thinking this time around. I'm trying to come up with the syllabus that your soul had come up with for this particular lifetime.
Wow. That's what
huge.
We're trying to do. That's so huge. And you're saying this information goes back 15, 20,000 years from these very developed humans that lived in a society where they were able to nurture their development over millennia and master all of these arts. And then you could say they were channeling the information, downloading it. They were getting it in some way where it was perfect because it has held up all of this time.
Yeah, somehow I think, the word channel is probably the best English word for it. In Sanskrit, they say shruti and smriti, which is it was listened to and remembered. So it's almost like their souls were they were so evolved, they could remember information and hear information. And then they transmitted it in an oral tradition. So they would speak it in poetry for generations. So from, let's say, 15, 20,000 years ago to about 5,000 years ago, it was purely a non-written oral tradition that was spoken from generation to generation until 5,000 years ago, somebody said, you know what? We're getting kind of dumb. We're losing our powers. We need to write it down to save it.
They needed to materialize it.
And then here we are in today's consciousness where we have these fragments of writings and we can barely make heads or tails of them because we don't have that consciousness.
So what happened? I know this is going to be a big question, but what happened to lower our consciousness collectively if we were able to be in a higher frequency where we could store information and access that stored information without a material intermediary? What happened to us that made us dumber, as you were saying?
I mean, I think, and this happens even today, right? People have some kind of a power or ability, and then they're like, oh, what can I do with this? And they start to take advantage of other people with that ability. And as soon as you use your powers for material gain or for greed, you start to lose those powers. And so I think over time, society became more material oriented, more materialistic. And so little by little, the spiritual abilities started to fall away. And you can see even today, people who try to become more spiritual, they try to step away from materialism. because they need to get away from that energy in order to ascend to higher planes.
Right. Yes, you do see that. But do you think, and I don't want to go too far off on a tangent, but do you think some of those advanced beings still exist, perhaps deep in the Himalayas or in some inaccessible area, that frequency, those beings exist away from us, but are still there?
Yeah, I believe that they are beings, and they've been discovered in the Himalayas. I've actually met some more recent contemporary beings that I've stayed with in the Himalayas and caves, and they have incredible energy about them. You feel something from them just when you're with them.
Tell us all about this. I'm sorry to go on a tangent, but we have all the time in the world. So tell me about this. You've interfaced with some of these beings, or at least iterations of them?
And if any of you have traveled to India and you go into the Himalayas, I mean, in some of the more remote forests, or even in the higher altitudes, you'll wonder, and people pop out of nowhere. And it's just like, how did you end up there? And they're just, smiling, and they'll, and I speak a little bit of Hindi, so they'll talk a little bit and give you some message. But even on some of the pilgrimage routes, I noticed that as you're walking, sometimes they'll invite you in to come and sit and have a cup of tea. And, something's going on. I was even more recently, I was walking near the Ganges River in Rishikesh, which a lot of yoga people go to, and they sense your energy, so they come out and they say, "Hey, come sit." And there's this guy in orange robes and long hair and all tied up in dreads, and he's brilliant smile, and he says, "Come have some tea." And so I was with my family, and we sat with him, and he said, "Your father is from Reba." I was like, "How do you know that?" And I was like, "Yeah, my father was from there." He's like, "I'm from there too. I used to, be a householder. I had a family. I had a life." And he told me about his life. And he said, "I hit the age of 65, and I decided it's time to go deeper into spirituality. So I abandoned my material life, and I gave all my possessions away and all my money to the family. And I just came, and now I live in this little hut, and I do my spiritual practices every day." And that's his life. Wow. So there are people in modern times who have dedicated their life to that improvement of their abilities. There are other people that are more hidden away, that may have been living maybe for hundreds of years, and they live in the Himalayas, and they don't really interact with people very often, but their energy work is being done in their own way. But then there's also beings on other planes. I mean, we have in the Vedic system, we have all these different lokas, these different planes of existence. And
dimensions,
dimensions. Yeah. They're called lokas. And, there's a saying, a lot of, if any of you are yogis, you might say a mantra, Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Have you heard this one?
No, I have not. No.
It's called Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. And in a yoga studio, and let's say you're sitting in New York and LA in a yoga studio, they'll chant it and they'll say, "Oh, may all beings everywhere be happy." That's the translation.
Nice.
But they mean all beings where? Everywhere? What is everywhere? Like outside of LA, in Africa, in India, in China? The first word is loka, and loka means different planes. So that mantra is saying, may all beings on all planes of existence everywhere find happiness and comfort. That's what that means, because we automatically recognize there's other beings on other planes. And, people in your life that have passed away, they're on the plane, or we call it Pitri Loka, the plane of the ancestors. We have the deities, right? Like today I called Ganesh. I said, right. "Hey, Ganesh, help us out. We're going to have a conversation. I don't know Jake that well, so let's make sure it goes smooth. Please help me out." And so he's on a plane of where the deities live. They call it the Deva Loka. So where all the deities are. And so when we worship certain archetypes or deities, they're on their planes. I had a client who was doing, he's in the, I work with a lot of movie industry clients. He was doing something on the Roman gods. And I said, the Roman gods, I mean, those poor guys, they're just sitting around, gods and goddesses sitting around, twiddling their thumbs, going, "I'm up here in my plane of existence, and nobody even remembers me anymore." There's no line. Like in India, if you say, "Hey, Ganesh, get in line," there's like 1 billion people worshiping Ganesh.
Right.
But if you go to a Roman god, there's nobody. So I was like, if you want your show to happen, start doing some rituals and start praying to those Roman deities, because they're just waiting for somebody, and then they're like, "Oh, okay, I'll give you all the boons you want." Because
those archetypal energies were tapped into by so many millions of people during those times, and there was an energy exchange. So in that dimension, they have life. They were given life and the breath of life by us through our worship as humans.
Yes. And so they exist. And I remember that movie Coco, the animation movie. Did you ever watch
Of course.
that?
Yes, I have children. So yes, of course.
Yes, you watch Coco. That is a perfect explanation. Like, if you don't honor them, they start to fade away. And when you honor them, then in their plane, they're alive. And of course, once a year, they come down to this plane on Dia de las Muertes, right? They come down, right? So, but that storyline actually matches with Vedic philosophy of the belief system that there are beings on different planes, and we can, work with them. And of course, somebody who's a psychic, they literally communicate with them. A medium communicates with people on other planes. I don't have those abilities. I just know the philosophical framework that supports that happening.
Yes. And let me tell you, I've had plenty of guests that are mediums that have tapped into the spirit world, but I often wonder, and tell me what you think of it from a Vedic perspective, how does the plane of the ancestors exist and the soul's path of reincarnation? Because if our ancestors are in a timeless plane that we can tap into, but then also going through their soul's journey of multiple incarnations, returning to that thing, that great thing, then what's going on there? Does it split up? Is it working in like a quantum sense on multiple planes? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So where we break down is we have this very linear version of time. Mm-hmm. So if I were to ask you about your past life, you're going to probably say it happened sometime in the past.
Right.
Right. And that's our human consciousness. But how do you know it happened in the past? Maybe your past life is in the future. Like, we don't know that. Like, we have a very linear version of time, so we don't quite understand what happens. And we also don't have this concept of time, because for me, a year is a really long time. Like, for a year to go, for me, 50 years is a very long time. 100 years is a long time. But they say on the Pitriloka, the plane of the ancestors, that 1 year in our time on Earth is actually 1 day of their time in their plane.
Oh my God.
So then all of a sudden it's like, my dad died, whatever, 7, 8 years ago. But for him, it's only been 7 or 8 days. So he's kind of like, hey, it's only been 7 or 8 days. I'm getting thirsty here. Can you, give me some water on my journey? And so we have these rituals we do in India every year of somebody's passing, because it's the 1 day mark. And so we offer food and water, because in their world, it's only been a day. So again, how much time between this incarnation and the next? Let's say in their time, it's 3 years. In our time, it's 3 times 100. It's 300 years. So again, we're not allowed for that long. So we don't quite know how that works. But there have been stories of people who've passed away, let's say in World War II, and then they're reincarnated in the 90s here, and they have a memory of that World War II death.
Right.
That memory. So that's only a span of 40, 50 years, right? Or again, like imagination here, I don't know, but are we only in this plane at one time? Am I a father, mother to some other people in another plane that I'm not even aware of? So that's the other thing that's not quite clear. Because when we do ancestral worship in India, we usually name 7 generations of ancestors. So I say, okay, this is my mom, my dad, my mom's mom, and mom's dad, dad's mom, and keep going. It's 7 generations. But then we also name all the lineage that we have from our reincarnation lineage. So anybody who is a mom to me in any lifetime, anybody who is a dad to me in any lifetime, anybody who is my dad's dad in any lifetime, my dad's mom in any lifetime. So we recognize that we're a product of a reincarnation lineage and a DNA lineage, both.
Wow. That's huge. That's such an incredibly advanced understanding. And like you're saying, it's coming from a place that's beyond time immemorial, but it really makes me think about how the Egyptian energy and the Egyptian gods are still so prevalent in Egypt, despite the fact that it's a predominantly Muslim country, and the Muslim religion is very strict about other religions expressing themselves, especially in their territory. And yet the Egyptian gods still live and still thrive in Egypt.
And those gods are very powerful. And I've been trying to understand, because, I look at an astrology chart and I'm basically mapping this particular soul's journey. And, most of the time when you're misaligned with your soul, that's when challenges happen in life, right? Like your soul is trying to orient you a certain way, and your mind is so powerful. Your mind pulls you in the wrong direction, and then you're out of balance. And so people come to me and I'm trying to help them find that soul alignment again. And a lot of times I'll find some energies in their chart that are very difficult, and I'll recommend that they worship a certain god, right? And then they're like, yeah, but I'm not sure about that. And some people are open, some are not. And so let's say somebody has a lot of problems with women in their life, right? There's a guy, he wants to have more good relationships. Every relationship he's in, it's breaking down. And I can see in the chart that that's related to Venus. Venus is a planet of love. Venus is a planet of women. And Venus is a planet of the goddess. In fact, Rome had a goddess called Venus.
Right.
And the Greeks had a goddess called Aphrodite. So if you're drawn to those traditions, you can worship either Venus or Aphrodite, and that archetype is behind Venus. In India, we have very clear archetypes. Of Venus, well, talk to Lakshmi. You worship Lakshmi, you do Lakshmi pujas and ceremonies. She will bless you with prosperity. She'll bless you with happiness. She'll bless you with love. But when you go to worship Lakshmi, are you really worshiping a god? That becomes the question. From a religious point of view, I'm worshiping a god. From a philosophical point of view, I'm actually activating that archetypal energy of that goddess in my own soul. Because philosophically, your soul and God are not disconnected. They're one and the same. So all of these archetypes are actually activating that goddess energy that resides within you. So you're only using the deity or God in a way as a stand-in, as a way for your mind to focus on an energy, to make that energy activate in yourself. And then you can start to have that goddess-like nature in your life. And then you attract the right relationships to you that way.
It's almost like a mirror. It sounds like a mirror, like you're looking at yourself, but you're externalizing Lakshmi as a conduit, a circuit for this energy. But then it's really just extracting it from yourself. It's allowing you to awaken that within.
Exactly. So that's the thing is, again, there's a simple way to think about it. Oh, there's a goddess. She's in this statue. If I go in front of her and worship, then she will bless me. But what's actually happening, I believe, is you're activating in yourself, and she's acting like a mirror to your own soul, but a different aspect of yourself. Because we're human beings, we're complicated people. Like, we're not all one way. We have many, many personalities. In different situations, we're different ways. We all suffer from multiple personality disorder. And so we have, in the Vedic tradition and the Roman tradition and Greek and Egyptian, all of them, there were multiple personalities available for you to access to deal with all your multiple personalities. But, that became really complicated. So the religions came and said, you know what, let's just simplify it and make one. Pick one, do one thing, and that'll work. And, for a lot of people, it does work, because you pick that one archetype and you say, oh, Jesus, he's amazing. He's like godlike in nature. He fulfills everything. And if I just surrender to him, he'll take care of it. Now, who are you surrendering to? You're surrendering to Jesus in your heart. Right. Don't they say accept Jesus into your soul, right? Or something like that. So that's what you're doing, is you're just activating the supreme within you through this stand-in, whatever it is, religion, whatever the religion is. That's what I believe.
Yes, and there's other spiritual people that talk about just activating the Christ consciousness or Buddha nature or Krishna consciousness within you. Like that, the externalizing it, the story is just there. Like you said, Vedic mythology is there to imprint patterns, to activate latent understandings, probably within our cellular memory, our DNA encoding, something, our spiritual DNA.
Or deep in our soul.
Yes.
Deep in our soul.
Something's in there, and that's activating that. And that's why it's so powerful. But again, we can always get back to the fact that it's within us. And that is why the Vedic system is a system of personal development. And then everyone now in 2024 on Earth is talking about personal development. That's why personal development is so important, because when you change, when you activate yourself, you're changing reality. You're changing the world. You're not just changing your perceptions, your understandings, your definitions. You're literally changing the fabric of reality, because the energy frequency has now changed. You changed your frequency. Now reality changed.
Yeah, exactly right. And I'm fascinated that people in 2024 are so interested in personal development. Awesome. I didn't quite understand it, right? And so I noticed that a lot of people are talking about astrology, a lot. And I'm sitting there going, I'm trained as an engineer. I was a business executive in the corporate world for 20 years. I'm looking for the hard science. I'm looking for the data. Why are people so interested in astrology? And I realized it's because people are trying to figure themselves out.
Yes.
They want to improve themselves, and they want some kind of a framework or map. And that's why like Cosmo magazine does so well, because there's always a quiz, right? You take a quiz. It's like, here's a quiz, 10 ways to find out blah, blah, blah about yourself. And people love to take quizzes. And I noticed in the corporate world, which I came from corporate America, there's always a personality test. So they're doing expensive quizzes, not like the free quiz in Cosmo, but they're doing like a $20,000 quiz where all the employees take a quiz. It might be Myers-Briggs. It might be disc profile. It might be strengths finders, all these different things that are trademarked and very expensive to figure themselves out to be a better leader. And I thought, wait a minute, I have the access to the best quiz of them all. Right. The best personality type indicator that exists, which is the Indian Vedic system of astrology. And that's why people were attracted to Western astrology to figure themselves out. And I'm like, yeah, but I have a much more sophisticated system. And so if I tell somebody, hey, if you just looked at your Vedic astrology chart, you would know so much more about yourself. And they're like, okay, where do I go? How do I learn about it? And there's nothing out there.
Right.
It's a system that's sort of not in vogue. So it's not easy to find a book. If I recommend you a book, by chapter 2, you're going to be, Vish, this is hurting my head. I don't understand this. I don't get it. So my goal was to write a book that becomes like this on-ramp into this system of consciousness. And the goal with the book is that as you read the book, you learn about these archetypes, these planetary archetypes, their mythologies, their stories. And through storytelling, and we know this throughout humanity, as you listen to a story, you get information that's beyond the words of the story. Yes. You get knowledge. The story is a transmission vehicle for other knowledge. And that's how the Vedic tradition has been. Everything's communicated through story. If you want to understand Mars, you have to listen to Mars' story. Then you're like, oh, that's the story of Mars. And then you understand that archetype and you see it in your own life. And then when you start to see the stories, you're like, wait a minute, that story happened to me last week in my own life. Okay, now I know the planet that's behind it. Now I know that archetype that I can do something to change it. So you become empowered to do something about your life. Like I'm all about like DIY. Like I like to fix things myself. So I'm like, learn about the planets, see them in your life, and then do something about your life. Take charge of your life and shift those energies. Don't become dependent on a healer or a psychic or an astrologer. Just take it in your own hands and start to understand that you are a conscious being that has incredible knowledge, incredible light, incredible wisdom, intelligence. And if I can just activate that in you through the reading of this book, you will start to take a different conscious approach to your life.
I totally agree. And by the way, the book is absolutely amazing. I read the book and it does all the things that you just said. And it is very, very easy to read. They're big concepts, but the way you lay it out is really powerful. And of course, the summary afterwards. So you're like, okay, you get all this big information and then you can go back and go like, oh, wow. And like you said, there really isn't anything out there. I haven't had a single guest talk about Vedic astrology. You were the first person, which I'm so honored that you're on the show. And actually, I just really love your energy, because I feel like your East meets West energy, as you're saying, it's the new Earth energy. That's the new frequency. It's like when we're all together as one family, we're just like all of our stories, all of our different cultural stories are really just one big story. And it's like this human family. And it's just like, I just picked that up from you. It's so amazing.
And we're all connected. I mean, I'll pull up a chart. Like I remember I was teaching in India. So I went to India to teach a Vedic astrology class.
Okay.
And we had all these students that traveled from all over the world and came to a traditional Indian ashram. Ashram is like a yoga center. And I was teaching Vedic astrology. And there was one student in particular that was just getting on my nerves. I couldn't manage. And I was like, God, what is going on here? And, and I stayed calm and I didn't want to, upset the class. But of course, then the rest of the class got mad at this poor person. And the whole thing became this whole thing. But then I was like, of course, there's some connection. We're all connected. So I pulled up that person's chart. I pulled up my chart, put them together, and I could see clearly that this Mars energy in my chart, which is the energy of frustration and anger, was getting activated by something in her chart. And the two just exploded. So you can see that every time I pull somebody's chart, I can almost see what might have been our past life connection. If there even was one. If there was one or there wasn't, I can see where the past life connection might have been, how I might have been wronged, how I might have wronged them. And I can also look and just see if there was no past life connection, but there's something about them that triggers the things in me because that's what I need to learn from that particular person. So then you realize we're all connected in marvelous ways. And instead of getting frustrated and angry why things are the way they are, you kind of learn to kind of smile at it all and be like, there's this like cosmic play all the time.
Yes, you surrender. You surrender to the divinity of it. You surrender to the story. You surrender to knowing that it's going to play out for your highest good. And then when you realize that, you don't get attached to the little things. Though it is interesting that some people show up that we had past life interactions with and then trigger us in certain ways. What percentage do you feel like people have in their lives that are from past life relationships? Because even the Japanese culture, they believe 95% of the people that you interact with, even people you walk next to on the street, had some role in one of your myriad of past lives. But what about you, from your perspective? What do you think? What percentage?
I could, so I would have conservatively said 50%. But I can really agree, as you're telling me about the Japanese culture, 95%, yeah, no doubt. Like that makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. It sounds preposterous. That's why I wouldn't say it, but you said it. So I'm going to say, you know what, I'm in with that. I totally agree.
It feels okay. It feels good. And then you think about it. And that's why, and the reason I know that is because I was told that's the reason why they're very formal and engaged, enthusiastic about greeting people as they pass by. They wave at them, look at them in the eye, and connect with them because culturally they believe they had some role in their past life.
You know, the thing is, if you cross somebody and they don't do anything, like you don't notice them, you don't even see them, that means there's probably no connection.
Right.
The fact that you made eye contact is already a marker. The fact that you made some contact is a marker. If somebody upsets you, that's a marker. If somebody you're enamored with, that's a marker, right? Like anytime there's some kind of a hit that you get in your emotions, you know there must be some connection. Maybe light, maybe loose, maybe heavy. Again, that an astrologer could probably determine, or a psychic or medium could determine. But a lot of times you see it, and then and sometimes like I'll do this with couples, right? Like I'll look at both their charts and they're having challenges in their marriage and they won't tell me what the challenge is. And I'll be like, oh, for 7 lifetimes, you've been facing this damn problem. And I'll explain it to them. And they're like, oh my God, that's exactly what we fight about all the time. How did you know? I'm like, well, we've been doing it so many times. Like you need to fix it. Like, cause otherwise you're going to be, you're going to divorce. Fine. But then next lifetime, you're going to be slammed back together again. And now you gotta fix it once and for all. So I would rather you fix the issue and then get the divorce so you don't have to deal with this person ever again in any other lifetime. Otherwise it's going to keep reoccurring.
Well, let me ask you this. How does that affect your perception of reality itself and then how you live as Vish through your daily life? Because knowing all of this, it totally just lends itself to the idea that reality is a complete illusion. Even though emotions are real, even though karma is real, even though all of these things have energetic implications, on some level, this is just a total illusion and it's not even real at all. It's literally just you and Brahma, you and Source.
That's right. So Brahman is the universal supreme energy.
Yes.
And so that energy, and a lot of people say, oh, in Vedic culture or Hindu culture, it's polytheistic, but it's not. It's monotheistic. There's one supreme being, supreme energy. Right. And then these are all forms that are different forms and archetypes of that supreme. And that supreme energy is called Brahman. And the story goes that Brahman is formless, nameless, incomprehensible, silent, just this thing. We can't figure it out. We can't comprehend it.
Total mystery.
It's not human. It's just there. And it's sitting there and it's just like, wow, this is really boring. It's just quiet. There's nothing going on. Like there's nothing. It's nothingness. It's boring. So let me create a play to have some fun so I can experience something. So it created the universe to have a little fun. And we're part of that story. We're on the stage. And so they call that, the concept in Sanskrit is called Leela. the play of life, the cosmic play. And so we live in this illusory environment just for the entertainment of the supreme formless energy. So they kind of have some chuckles out of it, right? So it's like, let's take this person, marry them together and see what happens. And when they don't work out, let's put them together again and again and again a bunch of times. And let's just keep watching the show. It's almost like somebody's watching the show of our craziness. And that's kind of provides entertainment for the universe in a way. We're on that play. And for me, as Vish, your question is, how do you deal with that? So yes, intellectually, and this is maybe the Supreme is laughing down on me, saying, "Here's this guy. Let's give him this brain so he can think about this stuff, but he can't really feel it, right?" So I can intellectually understand this concept of Leela or Maya, the illusion that nothing is real. But hell, when I see $100 bill, I see it as $100 bill, and I like it, and I want to buy something with it. And I have that material connection too. So I am, 1 foot firmly planted in the material world of existence. And I see everything around me as the reality of the world. And, whatever happens around me, I get upset, I get angry, I love, I hate, all of it, everything. But at the same time, intellectually, I know that it's all an illusion at the end of the day.
Right.
And how can I resolve that is through these practices. And when you start doing deeper meditation, deeper yoga practices, the purpose of those systems is to help you start to see through the illusion, to start to see through the matrix. And so in my intellectual mind, I'm like, okay, I think this will happen. But now as an astrologer, as I start to notice, I give clients remedies. It's almost like we reached behind the matrix, adjusted a couple of knobs, and then came back. And then all of a sudden, like, oh, wow, that improved. That worked. So there is a matrix, there is a knob, and it's working right here. And so you get these little blips of proof almost.
Well, you get to move your consciousness into that dimension and perceive information, process information in that place, which then you can bring back into this dimension and have that awareness, knowing that you can do that, which then totally alters your frequency. You're now living in a multidimensional awareness because your true complete consciousness, if you can even say complete of the infinite, is existing on multiple dimensions at the same time. And then you're aggregating that information to create your perspective.
Which is basically connecting to your soul. Because when you're at the soul level, the soul is beyond time, space, causality. It's beyond reality. The soul might as well be that bored, state of Brahman, and the soul is like, okay, I need some entertainment. Let me go through these different lifetimes.
Wow. So, but ultimately though, humanity, we are growing, we are integrating that higher information as we evolve through time. It really seems like humanity, for all of its faults and different things happening, overall, we're moving together into a place of love, of truly understanding each other and activating all of our gifts as humans.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we're all seeking love. At the end of the day, we're all seeking love one way or another. And we're evolving towards a state of complete love and being. Just some of us are evolving at a lot slower pace. That's the only difference.
But then, as we said, you get outside of time, you go to those other dimensions, and it just seems like a second to some of these deities. They're laughing at us because it's 5 minutes on their clock, and we're like thousands of years, and they're just like, yes. Wait, what?
That's right. That's exactly right. But you studied this, Jake. You know about this system.
I just know intuitively, and talking to all different types of people, how these functions work. That's the great part of interviewing so many people from different thinkings, different cultures, and different spiritual understandings, is you see the common threads. You see the things that are universal within all of those teachings. And then you can step back and say, okay, those are universal truths. And seemingly in the Vedic tradition, it's all universal truths. But in other traditions, you can see where those truths have manifested and then taken turns or wherever they go.
Yeah, I think, most indigenous cultures of the planet, most wisdom traditions of the planet tapped into an understanding of consciousness. And they had these understandings.
Yes.
But no culture has preserved it in as integrated a way as the ancient Indian system.
Absolutely.
Because along the way, a lot of the systems have died off. They're modern, like you said, Egypt. Well, the modern Egyptian is disconnected from that root. The modern Indian is still connected, because in India, still today, if you want to get married and you're Indian, your parents are going to call an astrologer and match up the charts of the husband and wife and make a decision whether it's going to work out or not. So they're already using it. Last week we celebrated Diwali, right?
Yes.
Diwali was the festival of lights. When is Diwali? Some astrologer determines that point, because they look at the moon and the positions and they determine it. So the astrology system is still an alive and used tradition in modern India today. Most politicians in India have an astrologer. Most wealthy families have astrologers on their payroll, advising them when to do things, when to make certain investments, when to marry off so-and-so. So it's alive today. And then astrology, with its components of the yoga system and yoga tradition, meditation system, Vedic astrology, Vedic philosophy system, Ayurveda, mind, body medicine, all of that integrated system, the mantra system, the gemology system, the crystal understanding, all that is still together, maintained for 15,000 plus years. Whereas everything else is a bit orphaned. Like there's this one piece, but there's nothing around it. It got lost in antiquity, so to speak.
Yes,
right?
Usually it's the 5,000 year mark where cultures start to drop off and completely disconnect from their history. And you're totally right. The Vedic history is the longest traditional history in the entire planet. And there's so much going on there. It's powerful. If you really start to unlock some of the Vedic teachings, it's very powerful. I love music festivals. So of course I always think about the Kumbh Mela, the original festival. My God, I mean, the Vedic people created everything incredible.
And then the thing is, today, like if I tell somebody go worship Venus, the Roman goddess, or Aphrodite, like what temple do you go to? It's not, they don't exist, right? There's ruins. You go to Rome, there's a ruin there, and you can kind of feel the energy, but not quite. But then if I say go worship Ganesh, which has been worshipped for 10,000 plus years, you can actually go to a temple in your neighborhood. Like most neighborhoods all over the country have some Hindu temple that is still maintaining a system that is connected to the original Vedic system. So let's say the Vedic system is 15,000 plus years old. The Hindu tradition started about 8,000 years ago. It derived from that. So even though it's a religion and they're following in a religious way, the archetypal energy is still the exact same. And the access to that energy is the same. And the access to the magical ritual still exists today.
Wow.
Right? The magical ritual, like, today there's all these people trying to do rituals, and they where are they getting it from? It's like bits and pieces. Whereas in India, we have this unbroken, at least 20,000 year old tradition of rituals. Wow. So the ritual that I do around a fire and the mantras that I chant, they've been chanted for 20,000 years continuously.
And the psychic imprint, the dimensional imprint, the stored energy, the Akashic energy, it's just through the roof.
Yeah. And so I don't have that sensitivity. So I'll do the ritual following it, doing it the way I know how, but I'll invite the people who are sensitive, the people who have those abilities. And they're like, wow, so all these beings are showing up, and all these other realms. Like, I'm just doing my fire ritual. I'm chanting my mantras. I'm throwing certain herbs into the fire. I'm got this fire going, and I'm just following the tradition that has been followed for 20,000 years without really knowing any better. Know a little bit. But then other people who come, who have the sensitivity, they're like, Vish, you have no idea what just shifted, and this happened, and this, and so on. This being appeared, and then this shifted in my life a week later, and I'm like, wow, there's something there. So you don't have to know it yourself to access those energetic shifts. So even if you don't know, if you do certain things, it actually has an energetic shift that a sensitive person in your life is going to feel and understand.
The rituals have power, the most powerful rituals in the world with the longest history, it seems like. Wow, that is just
magical. Like they're magical. I mean, I go to the temple and I look, and, like to most Indians, like, oh, we go do that in the temple. It's this boring thing. We have to sit through the priest just saying a bunch of stuff we don't understand and lighting a fire and doing everything. But then I'm thinking, wait a minute, there's some magic going on here.
Of course.
They're offering water, water element. There's a fire element. They're waving a fan, that's air element. They're putting sandalwood paste, that's earth element. They're lighting incense, that's, the flowers, ether element. Like, they're honoring the 5 elements of nature. They're using different colors that honor the 9 planets of the Vedic astrology system. So I will see literally each planet honored. And the priest doesn't make that connection to astrology. The congregate, or not the congregation, I don't know what to call them anymore, the people attending, the participants, they have no idea it's connected. But as an astrologer, I'm like, wow, every planet's getting activated. There's your intellect coming. There's your love in your life. There's your prosperity. Like, it's magically connecting all these planets to improve your overall life. So there is magic there.
There definitely is. And I think in the Western mindset, they don't realize that rituals have an energetic effect, much like a substance. People talk about taking psychedelics and things like that and having experiences. I think the Western mindset does not realize, unless you've participated, like myself, I participated in some magical rituals, and you feel the energy, you feel the presence, you feel that greater presence. I think that that's lost, but then they knew then, of course.
Yeah. And the word mantra is the word we use, but in English, you call it incantation. It's a spell. It might as well be a spell. A mantra is a spell to activate a certain energy. And I want to go back to the question you had about all these different floating bodies.
Yes.
And the connection of those floating bodies to your body. So you said, maybe there's 500 different floating bodies in the universe.
Or in our solar system, yes.
So in our solar system, there's 500 floating bodies in our solar system. So the Vedic system focuses in on 7 actual bodies of energy from the sun, the moon, Mercury, Mars, Venus, Jupiter, Saturn. Basically there's 7 plus 2 shadow planets or lunar nodes. They're eclipse points, and we'll get into those.
Okay.
But those first 7 planets are connected to the 7 chakras in the subtle anatomy of the human body. So that becomes a very important concept. When you use Western astrology, you start to add in all these other planets, but they don't have a place in the chakra system of the body. So this is the elegance of the Vedic system. Was it said that as a yogi, when you move your body in certain ways, yes, you're stretching your muscles, your bones, your joints, but you're also activating your subtle energy, which consists of these different channels of energy that intertwined. There's a sun energy and a moon energy that intertwine and crisscross. And wherever they crisscross is an energetic junction point called a chakra. And there are these 7 chakras in the human body, plus the 2 channels. The 2 channels, the sun channel and the moon channel, called the Ida and Pingala nadis. Any of you yogis will know Ida and Pingala nadi. And as they crisscross, wherever they meet, each junction point is a chakra that also connects to a planet. Like the root chakra, the base chakra, is connected to the planet Saturn. Saturn is about stability and ancestry. The root chakra is about your roots. Where do you come from? So as you travel up the body, like the heart is Venus. Venus is love. The throat is expression. Mercury is a planet of expression. So the planets relate to the chakra system. So 7 chakras, 7 planets, plus 2, Rahu and Ketu, which are the higher order chakras. Then, meanwhile, we also, in the Vedic system, came up with this idea that there are 7 different days in a week, and each of the 7 days correlates to a different planet. So we named one day of the week that we felt a lot of sun energy. We called it Ravivar, Ravi being one of the names of the sun. In English, we did then change it to Sunday.
Oh, right? Interesting.
Saturday, we called it Shanivar, the day of Saturn. In English, we call it Saturday, right? So we understood that 7 planets influence our very existence. So we named 7 days of the week. And so now when you add in like Uranus and Neptune, then you break the days of the week, for one thing. Like you start to break your chakra system. So that's where it feels very orphaned, because there's in Western cultures always like, what can we add? What can we modify? What can we change? Let's add this, let's add that. And you get too complicated. But if you just keep it simple, the body has a certain number of chakra points. The days of the week have a certain number of days. Our numbering system goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, which correlates to the 9 planets used in the Vedic astrology system. You add more planets, you just broke the numbering system as well.
Right. So they were able to develop this and they were able to hone it in such a way that it had total functionality. So even if there was other things happening, this method worked based on these parameters that they had set up.
Exactly right. And this number 108. Have you come across the number 108?
Yes, actually, that's interesting. Yes, just even a couple days ago, 108 came up, and I read an article about its spiritual significance.
Yeah. So what's so special about 108? There
was 108 suns between. No, 108 moons between the Earth and the sun, and then you could fit 108 Earths in the sun. There was all these different correlations.
Yeah. So basically, if you took the diameter of the sun and multiplied it by 108, you would get the distance between the sun and the Earth.
Right.
And if you took the diameter of the moon and multiplied it 108, you'd end up with the distance between the Earth and the moon. So that's an astronomical thing. Kind of interesting. Makes 108 a very powerful number. And the ancients understood that. But the other thing is you have 9 planets in Vedic astrology and 12 zodiac signs. 9 times 12 becomes 108. So it fits in so many ways. And any kind of mantra that you practice, you typically want to do it 108 times, because then you're tapping that cosmic frequency and vibration of 9 times 12 and sun distance and moon distance to the Earth.
Wow, that's so powerful. I will just add that there was a guest that came on my show, episode number 108. She became one of my best friends. I absolutely love her to death, Wendy Weir. And we've had a powerful relationship since we met on the show, episode 108. But,
episode 108, there you go.
Yes, but Vedic astrology, though, you say is a study of your unique karmic blueprint and then how the planets show up as agents of karma. Let's talk about that.
So the concept is that, like we said, we start with the soul is bored, right? The soul is bored, so it shows up and then it has this whole play. But then what happens is as you go through the play, you start to do good things and bad things, right?
Yes.
So some days you slap somebody around, some days you serve somebody a nice meal, right? Some days you steal something or you lie, and some days you're really kind and helpful and nice. So in the Vedic system, it starts to track a balance sheet of your good deeds and your bad deeds. So you end up with this accounting sheet, right? So here you are going through life, you don't realize it, but there's literally an accounting sheet keeping track of all your good things and bad things. So when you think no one is watching, your soul is watching. Right? So at the minimum, your soul is watching. And so they say that the moment you die, you go to the pearly gates of heaven, or whatever the concept is, and there's a celestial accountant named Chitragupta who basically pulls up your balance sheet and says, oh, here's all the good things you did, bad things you did, and sends you on to the next destination, wherever that is. That's the concept. But the idea is that you keep accumulating good credits and bad credits in every lifetime. And we're all on a journey to try to pay off and balance those credits and get to a zero balance. We're all on a journey trying to pay off our debt. And so karma is nothing but a sophisticated debt management system. And so when you're born, your soul has this whole closet full of karma that has to get taken care of. But it's too much to handle in one short human life. So instead of the whole closet, you show up on Earth with a carry-on bag of karma. Okay. And so in this one short life of 80 years, 100 years, in the Vedic times, it was 120 years. That was the lifespan in those days. In 120 years, or today we're about 80 years, so about 80, 90 years, you get this handbag of karma that's going to come due. So last lifetime, you stole from somebody. This lifetime, somebody is going to have to steal from you, because it's to balance it out. You did it. It has, what goes around comes around.
Right.
So what a Vedic astrologer does, by looking at your birth chart, looking at your planets and locations when you're born, they're trying to look into the contents of that carry-on bag. They're trying to see, what is the karma that is coming due this lifetime? What have you done in past lives that is coming due this lifetime? So they're going to say, wow, it looks like around 2026, very high chance you're going to have your, they might say, a technology item stolen. They can get that precise.
Wow.
And you're going to say, you know what? I've got a really nice computer that I bought. I don't want to have it stolen. And the astrologer is saying, well, you stole something from somebody in past lives. You kind of have to pay it back. So the question becomes, well, how can I pay it back in a less painful way? Well, what about donating some computers to a school? So you go ahead and you donate the computer to school, and the karmic accountant's going, okay, he stole something in a past life, but this time he made a donation of that. Well, we're going to call that even. And so now, instead of getting your computer stolen, you're just going to have it like go to the blue screen of death for a day, and then it's going to come back the next day, something like that, right? So it gets reduced. So we're all on this journey to find a way to manage our karmas and kind of make our balance sheets balance out. That's what an astrologer is trying to help you do. find an easier way to go through things that you have created for yourself based on all the choices you made. So even in this life, every choice you made has a consequence. May not come back this time around, but it's going to come back sometime around.
And I think that that's so much more functional than Western astrology, which kind of says, well, here's your life path and these things may or may not happen. And, you can't do much about it. With Vedic astrology, you're saying you can do something about it. You just have to look at it energetically and figure out how to balance the energy. If you did something destructive, do something constructive, do the polarity. If you're trying to correct that. Now, do people then, let's say people make really good choices and they start to just get in the flow of the universe and everything they're doing is in sync with the divine. Is that when the DNA starts to activate more? They start to develop what are called, hopefully I pronounce this right, siddhis, like powers, things like that.
Siddhis and are powers for sure, right? There's two concepts. There's the concept of samadhi, which is one who is enlightened. An enlightened being, when they become enlightened, they no longer create new karma. They sort of become like net zero, right? They don't create bad karma. They don't create good karma. They're just at a balance. And so, we would look at somebody like Jesus or Buddha or Krishna as enlightened beings who neither created nor created good or bad karma. They're just even. And they have such power, they can help alleviate your karma. So when you worship them, they, with their powers and whatever plane they're in, they can alleviate some of your power, some of your karma, right? So that's an important concept. This is why, like, if you're religious, you're automatically working on karma because you're taking help from whoever you're worshiping. Whatever that entity you're praying to, that entity, that being, that deity, that whatever energy is helping alleviate some of your karma. That's why prayer has such power.
Wow. And you think about the Jesus story, how they, in the Christian mythology or religious study, depending on where you're at with it, they believe that Jesus died for humanity's sins. Another way you can look at that is he's taking on and transmuting the transgressions as they're applied through that filter. As you connect with that deity and then raise your vibration to match that, then those transgressions are transmuted.
That's exactly a good way to put it. I mean, think about, the classic story of Jesus. He meets somebody who's crippled and heals them from being crippled, right?
Right.
So maybe that being in a last lifetime kicked somebody really badly in the legs. And so this lifetime has to be born with a crippled leg. But Jesus, because he was, net zero with his karma and he was enlightened, he had the ability to connect and channel to God and heal that person of that cripple and basically erase that karma. He took on that person's sin in a way from a previous life and balanced it out. Now, that's, I think, the theory or the working theory behind what was happening there is a guru has the ability to take on your karma and alleviate you of that burden.
Interesting, because I've heard that in relation to the Ram Dass story, Be Here Now, and his guru Neem Karoli. Yeah. He talks about that, how there was situations where his guru took on some of his karma from some of his choices that he didn't feel like were correct. Wow. And then they can transmute.
So guru has that power and that ability. But to some extent, you have that where you can say, you know what? I am recognizing that I must have done something bad in a past life some time ago. And this time I keep suffering with it. So I'm going to do something about it. And you have the ability to shift it. Now, sometimes you do something so horrible, you don't have enough hours in the day to rectify that one. So that one you're going to face, right? Like when somebody is born and early in their life, before they've even made choices, they're suffering. That typically is something from a past life. And, if you think about how much war and destruction we've seen just in our recent, 100 years of history, there's been so much destruction and so much misery and so much suffering that a human has inflicted on other humans. Those humans, when they died, they had to be reincarnated. What does that look like? Right. What does a Nazi soldier's reincarnation look like? What suffering would that person be born into? We don't quite know.
There's all of these cause and effect patterns that need to be corrected. There's probably millions, but all of that is a part of the human story. That's the interesting part, because even though it seems like things are very individuated, as you look at it from the shamanic perspective or the God's eye view or from Krishna's view, this is just playing out exactly, perfectly, exactly how it's supposed to.
Right. But then you see what can happen is you see somebody suffering and you're like, well, that's your fault. You did something bad in the past life. Screw you. That's your karma to face.
Yeah. Indifference is not good.
Right. So you can't just be like, okay, let me forget about that, because now you've created karma for yourself of not being compassionate and helpful to somebody who's suffering. When you see someone suffering and you help them, you just gave yourself a nice karmic boost. Right. So that's the thing is, anybody suffering is an opportunity for you to improve your balance sheet by helping them. So that's where compassion, like you keep saying, love and compassion, that if you just keep leaning to love and compassion, you're automatically boosting your balance sheet all the time. The opposite is anger. So, what is it in Christianity? They say the 7 deadly sins, right? The 7 deadly sins.
Sure.
Every one of those deadly sins is literally reducing your karmic bank account by committing those things.
Yeah, same with the 10 Commandments in Judaism.
Exactly. It's 10 Commandments in Judaism, right? And same thing in Vedic system. We also have our, version of sins, greed, lust, those kind of things. And so when you do those things, you are reducing your balance sheet. Why is it a sin? God's not going to punish you. You're going to punish yourself. Your soul is the one doing the punishing.
Interesting. So do you feel like we perceive those as transgressions because we allow our choices to be rooted in animal consciousness? Like we've moved out of that higher bandwidth, and then things like lust, and greed and things like that, it's a lower frequency because it's more animalistic. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so you could almost say that animalistic means you've forgotten the intricate weavings of consciousness.
Right, exactly.
Right? So I use the analogy of a restaurant meal in my book. There's a bunch of things, right? It's just being thoughtful. Like for instance, I rely on Amazon reviews a lot to make purchases, right? And so I buy from Amazon, I go on there, I read all the reviews, and then I buy something. And then I'm like really happy with it. And I, bought something that was well spent, good value for my money. But then I never post a review on Amazon. What karma does that create, right? So being conscious means thinking, okay, I use this as a tool. I now need to pay back in the system to karmically pay back all those people that have been doing reviews. So if I'm a consumer of reviews to make decisions, I need to be a reviewer to make those decisions, right? I offer my book free to some people and I said, here, take the book, my gift to you. And then I'm like, hey, could you write a review for me? And they're like, oh, I can't get to it. I've been busy. And I'm like thinking, that's again, a karmic disbalance. I did something nice, and the simple way to pay back, you didn't do it. So it's like, it upsets the karmic balance. You go to a restaurant to eat a meal. When you eat that food, can you think of what was involved in that meal showing up on your plate? There was a server who brought the plate to you. There was a chef and a sous chef who cooked it. There was a supplier that brought that food there. There was a farmer that grew that food. There was, the landlord who owns the place, and the rent and the electricity and the gas that came to serve. Like all of that consideration is part of our responsibility as human beings. At the beginning of the show, when you said, hey, please follow me on Instagram, in a way you're saying, hey, balance your karma out. You're watching this show for free. You're enjoying, you're getting knowledge, you're getting wisdom. What are you going to do in return? I'm asking just follow me, right? Because then that helps you, helps your profile, helps you get the word out. It's like a symbiotic understanding of the interconnectedness of everything. I think that's what separates us from animals, because animals hungry and just eats. It doesn't think that, oh, what did it take for that piece of food to get free?
And it'll eat a small animal in front of the mother animal. There's no morals and ethics in nature or karmic understanding. But yes, there is a karmic economy, you can say, and every choice that you make contributes to that karmic economy. And if we want that karmic economy to move us towards a heaven on earth situation, then all of us have to contribute. It's not your fault if you didn't notice it, but when you become conscious of it, it's then even more necessary for you to be a participant in this wonderful thing.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. It's a karmic economy. That's a beautiful way to think about it, Jake.
Yes, this has been, thank you, Ganesh. This has been an incredible conversation. We've flowed perfectly, and we've even gone longer than I even realized. I was so wrapped up in talking with you. It's been so beautiful and perfect, but I know you wanted to give me a reading, and I know that you wanted to give a listener a reading if we have time, but I would very much like to have a Vedic astrology reading from you right now on air.
All right. And have you had you haven't had your Vedic chart done before?
No,
right?
no, just the Western one.
Okay. So when I pull your birth chart, which I have on my screen, the first thing I want to zoom in on is at the moment Jake was born, at the moment that Jake basically manifested this incarnation. If somebody, let's say his dad or somebody else, or mom looked all the way east to the eastern horizon, from that place on planet Earth at that moment, what zodiac constellation of stars was rising on the eastern horizon? That's what matters the most, right? So, and with accurate math, with a telescope, what you see, not miscalculated to the actual sky. And that determines the stars that were showering energy on you when you were born. And that determines what we call to be the first house of the horoscope. And if that marks the first house, then we start to go all around the sky, and we divide the sky into 12 sections, each section having a different zodiac star constellation ruling it. Make sense so far?
Of course, yes.
Okay. So if you were looking east when you were born, it was the constellation of Leo that was rising.
Right.
Leo, the lion. So the mythology around Leo is the lion. And Leo as a sign is ruled by the sun. So in Vedic astrology, we call the sun a planet. The word for planet in Sanskrit is graha, which means a grasper of consciousness, you could say. So the sun, technically not a planet, is a grasper of consciousness. So that means on the eastern horizon was Leo, and Leo is ruled by the sun. And Leo is a sign that is connected to, look at me. I'm the king. I'm the royal one. Right? And one of the crystals connected to the sun is the amethyst. It's purple, it's royal, it's the king. And so directly in front of you, of course, you have an amethyst, because that's what a Leo rising person would do. They'd be drawn to amethyst, and they'd be drawn to the color of amethyst, which is purple. So purple is kind of a royal color. If you think about kingly times, like kings and queens, purple was the color associated. And you're wearing kind of purpley kind of color tones. Your background has purple and amethyst there. So that tracks with Leo. And Leo people also want to be noticed. So you can't just sit quiet and walk into a party and not be seen. You're like, people need to know I'm here. So you want people to say, hey, Jake, hey, oh my God, Jake's here. He's the life of the party. And you'll be like, oh man, this person gets me, right? That's important for a Leo. Now, Leo was rising on the east, but sitting on that eastern horizon was also the planet Saturn. Saturn was on that eastern horizon at the moment of birth. So Saturn's energy is casting there. And Saturn and Leo have a bit of a tough relationship. So Saturn is a planet of hardship and obstacles and difficulty. And Saturn, when it sits in that first house in that eastern horizon, gives the person difficulty, hardship, obstacles. And it takes them a long time to really find themselves. Right? So you may have gone through quite a difficult path of challenge before you found who you are. Right? Does that line up?
Absolutely and totally. I mean, in every way, yes.
Interesting. And Saturn is an old planet. So people usually with Saturn on the eastern horizon are drawn to old things. What is old things? History, antiques, antiquity, tradition, those kind of things. So you'd be very drawn to that. But Saturn and Sun have a little bit of a challenge with each other. So just imagine you've got this Leo rising, which is ruled by the sun. It's almost like there's a house. And in that house, the landlord is the sun. And the sun is a very, let me be seen. I'm the regal royal planet. I am the light of everybody. But in the house sitting, the tenant is Saturn, who says, I don't like to be seen. I don't want to be seen. I don't want to be noticed. I don't like this. And I don't like this landlord either. And so there becomes a conflict in the personality between actually wanting some alone time and not to be seen, but also wanting to be seen both. That conflict starts to happen. So, and that's the thing about the sign. It's not just the sign Leo, but it's what's in the sign that's influencing Leo. And the Saturn is sitting there. And the story goes is that the sun was a very bright, bright planet. And he was very hot. He had a lot of heat radiating off of him. And his wife said, "You're too hot. Like, you have too much heat. I can't stand the heat." So the wife of the sun said, "You know what? I need a break from this guy. He's just so hot and fiery. I can't take it anymore. I need a vacation. I'm going to go stay with my dad for a while." So, but she didn't want to upset her husband. So she said, "You know what? I'm going to leave my shadow in my place." So the sun's wife said, "I'm going to leave my shadow," left the shadow in place and said to the shadow, "You are the shadow. You are my shadow. Take care of my husband, our husband. But whatever you do, don't have sex with him. That's the only stipulation. Be a good wife, but don't have sex with him. I'm off for vacation. See you later." And so she takes off. And the shadow's left behind. The sun is so bright, doesn't even notice that his wife has left the house. And is sitting there going, "Oh, I like this. She's doing such a good job." And one day he gets very enamored and wants to have sex with her. And she's like, "Yeah, sure. Why not? Who's going to notice? Who's going to know?" So sun ends up making love to the shadow wife who's not supposed to do it, and ends up having 3 children with her. And one of those children is Saturn. And he starts to notice that this shadow wife is taking care of the 3 new kids better than she was treating the first 3 kids of the real wife. So he figures out there's a ploy here. Something's going on. And sees and finally realizes it's a shadow and says, "Hey, what the heck? Shadow's here. I want my real wife back." So begs for the real wife to come back. She says, "Okay, fine. I'll come back only on one condition. You get rid of some of your heat." So sun said, fine. He went to the celestial architect, had a bunch of heat chopped off of him. They became weaponry for the different gods. The sun reduced in intensity. The real wife came back and the shadow wife got sent away. But meanwhile, one of the kids of the shadow wife was Saturn. And he says, "I don't like my dad. He kicked my mom out of the house. I'm not too happy about this." And so Saturn and sun have become enemies since that time. It's a father and son who hate each other. So this mythology shows up in many ways. It can give you challenges with your father, can make you have a very strained, difficult relationship with your father. It can make you have difficult relationships with women where you shine too much and the woman can't handle the shining. It can also give this sort of, I don't want to be seen. I don't feel good enough, because Saturn is like, I'm the son of the sun, but I don't feel good enough because I was born of the shadow wife. Right? So that mythology starts to show up in the chart through that way. So does any part of that story resonate with you?
Oh my God, yes. I mean, very much so. I dealt with a lot of conflict early on, but then I had huge quantum leaps of growth later in life. In a way, I've considered myself a late bloomer, even though all of the knowledge and information, looking back in hindsight, you can see the foreshadowing of how divinity and my ancestors and all these beings planted these things to help me get to this point. But I had incredible obstacles, struggles, yes, with my own father. It's been very difficult. It's good now, but it was very difficult as a child. And then I've had struggles with my stepson on the flip side, where the stepson is the Saturn, but I love him to death. I mean, we've corrected those issues.
And stepson means there was a divorce involved.
I connected with someone who had children.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So there was no divorce involved in your life.
No. I mean, early on, I my life's had a lot of obstacles. I have an incredible story, but yes, early on, I did have a very young marriage that lasted very briefly, to which I have one son.
Yeah. So that had to happen because of the son. The son's wife left, and she left her shadow in place. So in a way, that was a second marriage.
Right. Oh my God.
The mythology there.
And that's the thing, that this is all there. And then how do you, and then you can find other things too that you can correct, right?
Yeah. So then the other thing that's fascinating about your chart is you have Jupiter in the sign of Cancer. So if that eastern horizon was Leo, if you go just below the horizon, that was a sign of Cancer. And below the horizon is the 12th house. And so remember, we counted the horizon as house number 1, 2,
Right.
3, and we keep going around, and we end up with 12 underground. And so the 12th house is the house of spirituality. So sorry, the 12th house is above ground. So you count downwards and then you come back around and you're almost coming up. So 12th house is just above the eastern horizon. And that is the house of spirituality. And in it is the sign of Cancer. So you have this emotional connection to spirituality. But the planet Jupiter is sitting there. And Jupiter in Sanskrit is known as the Guru. The Guru. And so the planet Guru, out of all the houses, just like Saturn hates being in the house of the sun, Jupiter loves being in the house of Cancer, which is ruled by the moon. And so Jupiter becomes extra expansive when it's in Cancer. We call it exalted. And so when you have an exalted Jupiter, in Sanskrit, that would be an exalted guru, it makes you a guru. It makes you a teacher. And being in the 12th house of spirituality, it makes you a teacher of spirituality. So you probably are brilliant at understanding and teaching about spiritual subjects.
Yes, absolutely. Not to toot my own horn here, people, but the reason I have tens of thousands of listeners in over 100 countries is because people feel like I'm doing a good job. I hope anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, you're a spiritual guru. I mean, that's very, very apparent in your chart. You're a spiritual guru. And I'm going to get into this other concept. So in the Vedic system, we have the 12 zodiac signs going Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, and so forth. But we also have these distant stars called nakshatras. There are 27 more distant stars that are more distant constellations that also give us some connection to mythology and deities. And your Jupiter, even though it's within Cancer, further behind it is a sign or a nakshatra constellation called Pushya. And it is the root of the word push. So people who are Pushya are also pushy. So you can have a little bit of a pushy tendency. And you may push your knowledge on others. So there can be that. But Pushya's deity is the deity Brihaspati. And Brihaspati is the master of all rituals. And so this makes you somebody who's very drawn to rituals, very specifically. And so if you don't already, I would practice rituals because you'll get a lot of spiritual insight from ritual practice.
Wow. Yes, I have had. Rituals have been a huge part of my life. In America, there was a ritualistic practice that happened when people would go to certain concerts like the Grateful Dead or other bands. They set up a shamanic pathway for people to take psychedelics in a safe environment, and the music would take them on a shamanic journey. And in a way, it was a ritual because everyone would go there at a certain time, ingest the substances at roughly the same time, and then focus their psychic energy on this improvisational music, which would take them to all these places. That was a huge part of my life. And then now in this part of my life, I've been studying other magical rituals and taking part in those. And it's been mind blowing for me.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll expand your spiritual abilities. And that would, if you said, hey, Vish, I'm not getting spiritual downloads, the remedy would be start doing some rituals. That's what I would see in the chart.
Well, guess what, Vish? I get spiritual downloads 24/7. I put myself in this frequency. I connected so many different spiritual people from around the world that it's just pretty much nonstop. And only I believe because I totally surrendered myself to divine service. Not that my ego doesn't express itself occasionally in its own way, but my core, my subconscious, my soul, all of that is directly surrendered to God and directly dedicated to service.
Well, there's a couple of interesting things that suggest that. So Saturn is the servant planet. It's a servant because it was sort of rejected from the family, not good enough, the son of this shadow wife. So Saturn became a servant. And so Saturn is a planet of service. So when you have Saturn on the eastern horizon when you're born, you have a service mentality. You're always trying to serve. You're always trying to, serve people within Leo, which is a kingliness. So you kind of have both the king and the servant together in your personality.
And then with the Jupiter in the other house, then the service is rooted in spirituality.
But the psychic piece is another thing. So, you have a debilitated moon. So the moon is a planet of your mind and psychology. It's located in the fourth house of mind and psychology, but it's in the sign of Scorpio where it doesn't like to be. It's considered to be very weak there. So what that means is you may have challenges with your mother. So the moon is also connected with the mother. You may have had some challenges with your mother, and in a serious way with moon being debilitated. But it also gave you the ability to kind of think beyond the mind. So beyond the intellect, beyond psychology, you find the spiritual side, because Scorpio is all about secrets and hidden things. And the moon is your mind. So your mind is drawn to secrets and hidden things. So at first, when you're younger, you might have said, you know what, I want to explore secrets. I want to research. You have a good mind to kind of dive into the depths of things and understand things deeper. And, it might have been history because of Saturn. But then, is that lining up so far?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Except where I studied the paranormal. I studied paranormal history, the occults. Even at a young age, I was deeply interested, even before I was 10 years old.
Okay. So the paranormal comes because the Ketu is in your 8th house. So we'll have to explain what is Rahu and Ketu. So there are these. So we talked about 7 planets, right? We went from Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Venus, Moon, Sun, Mercury. Those are the main planets that we talk about. But we also have these 2 shadow planets, and they are basically points in space where eclipses can take place. Solar eclipse or lunar eclipse, they happen at these 2 astronomical points in space. They're not planets, they're just shadow points where the moon or the sun can get shadowed. But in Vedic astrology, we give them personalities, Rahu and Ketu. So some of you may have heard of this, Rahu and Ketu. And Rahu is the head of a serpent and Ketu is the tail of the serpent. And the mythology is that there was this huge war between the gods and the demons. And the demons were getting the upper hand. The gods were losing. And the gods went to Vishnu, the Supreme Lord, and said, look, we're about to get annihilated. The universe is going to plunge into darkness. What do we do? And Vishnu said, your only salvation is to get this pot of immortal nectar from the bottom of the ocean. But you have to first churn up the ocean to make it rise to the top. And it was a milky ocean, an ocean of milk. And if you churn it up, it'll become creamy and buttery. And then this pot of nectar will rise up. And if you drink that nectar, you'll be saved and you won't lose the war. But the gods were so weak, they couldn't churn the ocean on their own. So they went to the demons and had to form an alliance and said, hey, demons, we got this line of sight to this pot of nectar. You help us. We'll get the nectar. We'll all share it. So the demons like, yeah, sure, we'll share it. And so they got together and they churned up this ocean. And when they churned it up, finally this pot of nectar rose. And the gods sent this beautiful maiden to tempt the demons away. And instead, the demons were served a pot of liquor that intoxicated them and they forgot about their mission. The gods then drank the nectar and became immortal. But one demon snake was very smart and said, you know what? I see through this ploy. I'm going to sneak in. I'm going to drink the nectar myself. So he disguised himself as a god, got the nectar and drank it. The sun and the moon, the planets of light said, wait a minute. We see through this. This is a ruse. This is a disguise. This is a demon. And so Vishnu appeared, took his discus, threw it, and cut the demon at the throat. But it already drank the nectar, so it remained immortal. The head became Rahu. The tail became Ketu. And so they exist in your birth chart as this head with no body and this tail that's cut away from this mythology of churning that was cut into 2. It's immortal. And because the sun and the moon were the tattletales, Rahu and Ketu are constantly trying to swallow up the sun and the moon. So when you see an eclipse, it's like Rahu tried to swallow up the sun, but it came out the other side because there's no body. In your chart, Rahu is actually with the sun. So that means that when you were born, the sun was not in an eclipse, but in the location where eclipses can take place. So astronomically, there was no eclipse, but it was in position. And the sun is your father and your self-confidence. And Rahu is this confusing, headless energy that's like trying to swallow up the sun. And so it's in the 2nd house connected to communication. So surprisingly, at some point in your life, you were afraid to communicate. You were afraid to express yourself. And you had a lack of self-confidence.
That's absolutely true. There was a whole stage of my life. I had social anxiety issues. I had issues engaging with people. I didn't understand communication. Then, of course, I conquered that and then blossomed into where I am now.
Right. But the conquering went through some churning. So at some point in your life, there would have been major churning, this churning of the ocean mythology that would have almost destroyed you. But eventually this nectar of immortality came up. And once you had that taste of that nectar, you became immortally a speaker.
Right. Wow. And that was a huge pivotal turning point in my life. I could almost pinpoint the experiences that activated me in such a way that activated my self-confidence. It totally put my consciousness in my divine aspect. Therefore, I wasn't really concerned about what people thought about me. So, and when you get to that place, then you unlock all of those powers.
Because the demon serpent that snuck in didn't give a crap about the gods. He snuck in. He's like, I don't give a damn what the protocol is here. I know my brothers and sisters went and drank the pot of liquor, but I'm going to see through that. And I don't really care that they're all gods here. I deserve that nectar as well. So that's a very powerful force of Rahu and Ketu, and you used it in a powerful way. Now, Rahu is also, because it's a head with no body, it wants to consume. And whatever it consumes, it never gets any satisfaction. I can't get no satisfaction, that line from, right? That's Rahu. It's like, it never feels full because there's no body. And it's in your second house, which is also connected to the mouth. So you could have had some kind of you could have addictions, drugs, alcohol, food, any of those things is connected to Rahu in the second house.
Interesting. And then if you're somehow able to transmute that energy and push it outward, there, you're feeling insatiable, but if dissatisfaction is a creative state and you're never satisfied, then that means you're always creating. And then if that creation is service rooted in love and divinity, then you're doing it. You're part of the divine story.
Right? So we talked about Rahu, the head, where it's sitting in your second house. And so did you have any obsessions or addictions at any point?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I still probably use cannabis far too much than I should, but there was points I was addicted to sugar. I was addicted to caffeine. I was definitely addicted to food. I was very overweight as a teenager. Perhaps I used them as coping mechanisms or ways to stimulate biochemistry like dopamine, but ultimately it was addiction.
That's the challenge with Rahu, is that Rahu is seen as a black, dark, smoky entity or force. So anything that creates black, dark, smoky creates excess Rahu energy. And Rahu is an energy that can confuse and can become this headless thing. You lose your head, so to speak. So treat anything dark, smoky with caution.
So is that what happens to people when they sink into addiction, heroin addiction, these terrible things? Their Rahu energy, it just consumed them. It's just gone.
It's just a head, Rahu. And meanwhile, we can't forget about the tail. The tail's on the other side. And the tail is Ketu. The tail says, right, I'm out of here. I don't need this anymore. I got somewhere else. And they just leave. And Ketu in your chart sits the opposite in the 8th house, which is connected to secrets and transformation and the occult. So what that can do is, if you don't get into the occult, Ketu will take things away from you. But when you get into the occult, Ketu becomes a helper, and it helps you realize that all of this world is just an illusion and you can see beyond it. And Ketu, as its head is cut off, is same as Lord Ganesh that we started the whole conversation with. Lord Ganesh had his head cut off so he could access deeper realms of information beyond the brain. And so same thing with you is when you have Ketu sitting in the 8th house, you can access occult information that's hidden from view. And it's within Pisces, and Pisces ruled by Jupiter goes spiritual 12th house in your chart. So you can see that you have a chart of very powerful otherworldly psychic abilities. That's a signature in your chart.
Wow. And I will be completely honest with you. I do have a very deep intuition. This is what makes me a good podcast host, is because I'm able to psychically connect with people in such a loving and genuine way that Ganesh shows up and then we have this incredible conversation. And yes, I do have premonitions. I have dreams. I've dreamt the future. And then, of course, the extraterrestrial aspect. How does the Vedic astrology incorporate extraterrestrial technology, not just the gods, but the other entities that are out there that are just advanced like us, like the starseeds?
Yeah, I haven't done enough work on that because a lot of my work is around helping individuals and people, self-develop.
Ah,
But you have the ability to communicate with those planes. And what's interesting is your Ketu is in Jupiter sign, and so Jupiter is the heavy planet. Ganesh is the heavy god. Ketu is the planet with its head cut off. Ganesh is the planet with its head cut off. So Ganesh is a very powerful archetype for you. I mean, I didn't realize that when we started the call. Maybe you planted that in me with your abilities, but that's your archetype. Like that's a very powerful archetype for you. And your Ketu is also in a distant constellation called Purva Bhadrapada, which is symbolized by what's lying below the water surface. So I kind of think in Western culture, it's like the Loch Ness monster. It's like there's something creating under the surface that exists. And Ketu gives you the insight to see that. So you're able to see below the surface of the water what other people can't see. And so things that are lurking and hidden that the rest of us don't have access to see, you can actually see and communicate and connect to.
wow. Yes, I totally agree with that. And it's funny because one of the first books that stimulated my life journey into the occult as a 6-year-old was reading about the Loch Ness monster. That was the first book that when I talked to people about my story, I was like, yeah, then I read about palm reading and Bigfoot. And then that, went off into all these other different directions. That's really funny. And yes, and then
I'm shocked, right? I brought up Loch Ness monster because that's the analogy I use for Purva Bhadrapada, which is one of 27 star constellations that we can use. And your Ketu's there, and you're like, well, yeah, at 6 years old, that Loch Ness came to me, right, in the storybook. So that's the thing is you start to realize that everything in your life has some meaning and some purpose. And astrologer can usually root cause what that's connected to. Which if you were saying, hey, Vish, I work in this, you could have worked in the music industry quite easily because you have Taurus rules your 10th house of career, which is overhead, and it's ruled by Venus, and Venus goes to the 3rd house of performing. So you could have easily had a career in the music industry. You have Mars with it. You could have been executive in it. And at some point you would say, hey, Vish, I'm just so frustrated in my career. It's just not working for me. And I would say, well, you're missing this whole Loch Ness monster side of your being. And you said, oh, I read that book when I was 6. Oh, well, what did that bring up for you? Well, I realized I had these other powers, but I decided to put them aside to go to this corporate career. And I would say, no, you know what? You really need to honor that. And then when you honor that, you would have had what you have now. But you figured it out on your own. That's the amazing thing about your life, Jake.
I was guided. I was divinely guided every aspect. And yes, I did take the shamanic path, at least in the American way, going through psychedelic initiations, going through journeys, meeting people, meeting some of the most incredible people that guided me to this point. And I am tapped into all of those things that you're talking about, but I just don't like to vocalize it. Maybe that's that Saturn, even though the Leo's there, but I just serve. I just do, I realize those things are there. I've had experiences that would absolutely blow your mind if I told you all of them, but it just makes me do that. It's like, do the thing is really where I end up.
Did you work in the music industry? Were you ever in the music business?
I still am right now. There was a time in my life where way before I did the podcasting, 20 years ago, I was managing some bands. I didn't really like the emotional aspects. So I moved on, but then I started producing concerts. And then I started a nonprofit to produce concerts. And then I took a while off. I took about 10 years off. But this will be going into our 4th year. 3 years ago, I started a music festival called Re-Evolution. And it takes place in the state of Washington. And this is now going to the 4th year, 2025. Every year we do an annual event where we bring in musicians of all different types of genres. And we also have great spiritual teachers at one of the most sacred places in the world that happens to be just outside of Seattle in Washington.
Interesting. So your house of career, which is the house that's directly overhead, the portion of sky that's overhead from where you're born, the zodiac sign of Taurus was there. And Taurus is ruled by the planet Venus, and Venus is the planet of art and music art and music, basically. And your Venus sits in its own sign of Libra. So it's a powerful Venus, and it's in the 3rd house connected to performing. So you have a career that's connected to performing and to music. That's aligned in your chart. And with that Venus sitting right next to Venus, the planet of love, prosperity, music, art, is Mars, which is the planet of aggression and war and take charge and command. So what that means is that you have a strong ability to be a executive with music and arts, to be the one that manages and operationalizes and keeps them disciplined to make things happen.
Why are you saying this right now, Vish? This is so relevant. You don't even realize the emotional aspect is a lot.
Right. So the emotions you can manage because it's the moon debilitated. So the moon has challenge, right, with emotions. But one of the things you can do is there is a chant in Sanskrit called the Hanuman Chalisa.
Yes, Hanuman. We love Hanuman.
Right. So, and Krishna Das sings a very good version of it. I think it's called Gate of Sweet Nectar. You get that version and start listening to it. And if you play an instrument, play along and try to sing along with it. And the reason is your Mars is in a constellation, a distant constellation called Swati, which is connected to the wind god, the wind. And the wind god's son is Hanuman. So when you worship Hanuman, it actually starts to take care of the Mars, which is the executive ability, but Mars is the ruler of Scorpio, which is where your moon is. So when you make Mars content with Hanuman Chalisa, which is a song, and you memorize and you start singing along to it, it's going to stabilize the moon, which is going to stabilize your emotions. There's going to be a lot of emotional stability from that one chant.
Wow. And these mantras have been developed to stabilize our energetic frequency. The songs, the sounds are frequency. It's all vibration and energy. And they have been created, they've been tested, time tested to help us stabilize ourselves energetically. That's so huge. But which one, right? It's like you can take a knife and you can hurt somebody with it, or you can make it a scalpel and surgically go into the exact right thing that's required for that person. So same thing, there's all these mantras, all these sounds, but surgically the right frequency for you is the Hanuman Chalisa, because it's connected to the star constellation where your Mars is in, and Mars is the ruler of your moon. And your moon has this challenge of, emotions getting out of whack. And so you can stabilize it with Hanuman Chalisa. Wow.
Right? So that becomes a big remedy. And then, of course, then you don't rely on the smoky energy as much to calm, which is aggravating Rahu, which creates a lot of turmoil emotionally as well. So that's interesting. And you happen to be right now in your life started on August 27th, 2024, you came into a Venus period of life. And so there's a lot of activation in the music industry for you between August 27th and February 5th coming up. So if there's an opportunity that you're considering, it could do some really good things for you if you can get the emotions managed through
wow. Vish, you're blowing my mind right now. Thank you, Ganesh and Krishna and every Brahmin, the great source of everything, for all of this information. This has been such an incredible reading. I thought we'd have time for an audience reading. I don't think we do have time for that. We'll maybe try that next time you're on the show. But is there anything else in my chart that you feel like I should know?
Yeah, you're going through a little bit of relationship challenge at the moment. Are you in one at the moment?
Yes. And I'm going through challenges.
There's some challenge. Yeah, because Saturn is transiting the house of relationships for you. So Saturn right now in the sky is going through Aquarius, astronomically speaking, and Aquarius is your house of marriage relationships. And so Saturn is retrograde. So now is kind of, Saturn is always like all about the truth. So coming to what is the truth of the relationship and making sort of the decision aligned with truth, whether that's commitment, like really committing, or saying, this is not truthfully the right thing, and then doing the hard work that's required. That's sort of what Saturn demands as it goes through the house of marriage, house of relationship.
Interesting. Yeah, I could unpack that. But yes, I mean, it's relationships are always challenging, but yes, it seems like a strange time right now. But there's so much growth for me. I've had an explosive amount of growth starting around the end of August, really, because we wrapped our festival mid-August. It was the second weekend of August, and then it was just so many magical things happened. It was an explosion of energy and so many good things happened. It changed my life.
Interesting. For you, and are you married at the point now, or is it
no? I'm just in a long relationship.
Saturn at the moment where it's transiting is in a sign constellation called Shatabishak, which is within Aquarius. And the symbolism of it is actually a ring. So rings are kind of interesting because rings are used to, kind of promise people in a relationship. So one thing you could consider if you're really committed to the relationship and you want it to work, see the truth of it and decide, is to just do a ring exchange. Just give a ring as a gift. Like, I'll buy you a ring, you buy me a ring. It's not a wedding thing. It's just a ring, because that ring energy activates that particular location of Saturn, which is very tied to your commitment area of your chart. It's kind of an interesting remedy.
Interesting. Yeah. So that frequency of the ring kind of alters your auric field in a way that's more in sync with Saturn.
Yeah. And then that same location of rings is the deity of it is the god of oceans, Varuna. So if you took a vacation to an ocean place and exchanged, gave gifts, not a ring exchange, but you gave a gift as a ring, you receive a gift as a ring in an ocean place, jump in the ocean together, you'll notice a shift energetically in the whole relationship.
Wow.
Yeah. So these are getting into the remedy side of things.
Yes, which is so huge about Vedic astrology. This is an incredible reading. I mean, is there more?
We could go for hours.
Oh my goodness.
There's hours. Like, I'm giving you a very brief. I mean, when I sit with a client, it's usually I spend 90 minutes with them and we barely cover just a few basic things. I mean, you could spend an hour on every house of the chart, and there's 12 houses. But my goal with the book is to give people a taste of this very elegant, sophisticated system to understand here are these 9 planets, these energies that exist in your life. They show up all over the place in your life. If you tune into their frequency and their energy by reading the book, you'll understand their personalities, and you'll have them show up all around you in your life. And so you can live a more conscious life. And obviously, if you want to go deeper, you want to have a full chart done, you find a good astrologer that you trust. I have a section in the book at the back that explains how to figure out the right astrologer for you. Because, you got to find, is the person have the right chemistry? Do they have the right life context for what you're going through? Do they have the right bedside manners? Do they communicate in the right way for you? And finding the right person for yourself then becomes its own thing. But if you read the book, you also are more educated then to have that conversation with an astrologer, to really, ask the right questions. Like today, you asked some great questions because you read the book, right? So then we can go a little deeper into your chart than I would with somebody who has no background at all, right?
Well, I always read every book of every guest. That's how you get the best questions. And we've had such an incredible conversation. And like you said, people can get readings from you directly. It's not just about the book, but they can get readings from you directly, and they can find you at headandheartinsights.com. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think the easiest thing to remember is I have another website, vishchatterji.com. So you can just find me at vishchatterji.com, and that'll give you a link to buy the book. It gives you a link to generate your own chart. So you can generate a birth chart and use the book to kind of do your own DIY interpretation of yourself. And then, if you want to invest the time and the money, then you can find me through vishchatterji.com, and you'll get to my business, Head and Heart Insights, and you can schedule time. I'm booked out probably into the new year at this point, but I've got some slots in December, I think. Yeah.
Nice, because you do coaching, advising, and the readings. It's not just the readings. Yeah. And there's subcharts and divisional charts, even you were saying in your book, which, like you pointed out, has no parallel. That's really one of the things that makes Vedic astrology so intricate and so in-depth.
Yeah, just for fun, I'm going to share my screen.
Sure.
Let me just see if I can hide the birth data.
Oh, it's fine. I can edit that and kind of blur that out very easily.
Let me see birth data options. I can just keep the name there. And so, yeah. All right. So there's no birth data now. And so if I then switch to this screen, I'll show you what I've been looking at this whole time.
Okay.
So this is what I'm looking at. So this is a diagram of the sky at the moment of your birth. This is the point on planet Earth you were born. This diamond is the eastern horizon. This is known as the first house of the eastern horizon. And the number 5 means it's constellation number 5, which I know to be Leo. So constellation number 1 is Aries, then Taurus, 3 is Gemini, 4 is Cancer, then 5 is Leo. And this is the first house. This is the second house. And you can see the second house had the sun, which is the planet of your confidence and will. Mercury, the planet of expression, but then has this eclipsing Rahu head that sort of confuses and smokes out the whole house. Right? And then you have Venus in its own sign of Libra, but it's right with Mars, this very fiery planet. There's the moon, which is the planet of psychology, in the 8th sign of Scorpio, that's ruled by Mars, that goes over here. And you can see Mars is in Swati, which is that distant constellation I was talking about, connected to Hanuman. And then you can go all the way around 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And there's the 8th house with Ketu, which is the, spiritualizing planet in the sign of Pisces, which is ruled by Jupiter. And then we go 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There's a 12th house, Jupiter in Cancer. And if you read the fine print, Jupiter in Cancer, in Pusha, and exalted. Very, very powerful. Mercury in Chitra, in its own sign. Very powerful Mercury. Good at speaking when he finds himself, right? And so you can kind of see why these are. And then Moon, which is the emotions, debilitated, runaway emotions.
Interesting. And this chart, again, is on your website, vishchatterji.com. They can get this information.
At least the birth chart, at least this part. Now, this is the planetary periods I was looking at. This is how I was figuring out dates. So they don't have this in Western astrology, but in Vedic astrology, you have different planetary periods you go through in life. So, at some point in 2013, you came into Venus period. You'll be in it till 2033. And right now it's Venus Jupiter, which is a pretty good period. That's a period of life that Donald Trump is in. That's why he also won. That is Venus Jupiter was his period that's in. Very, very
interesting.
Successful period for people.
Wow.
And then you can see for you on this 8/27, August 27th, Venus, Jupiter, Venus, really good energy here to activate something to do with career and something to do with music, because Venus is the ruler of the house of career, and Venus also the house of performing, and it's connected to Swati, where your Mars is, which is a musical sign. So music is great for you. It's a music stabilizes your emotions, and particularly Hanuman Chalisa, learning to sing it, play it will stabilize emotions and also help your career.
Wow. Vish, this has been absolutely amazing. It's been a riveting conversation. We've gone over 2 hours. I can't even believe it. I've totally lost track of time. I can't thank you enough. You have been an incredible guest.
Thank you, Jake. Thank you. That's a really high honor to hear from you. You've interviewed so many people. You've done such amazing work. I can see from your chart, you bring so much to our universe, not just to our planet Earth. And so I'm grateful for this opportunity to spend time with you and to share my passion in astrology with you.
Well, thank you, Vish. And that's the thank the divine. It shows up for different ways for different people, but that source, the Brahman, as you were saying, the
Brahman, yeah.
Brahman. We love that. We just want to send love to the Brahman. And people, you're listening to this and you want to take the deep dive into Vedic astrology, get the book, Astrology Decoded, The Secret Science of India's Sages. Discover the 9 personality types that shape the way you live, work, and love. What an incredible book. I read it. It's a very palatable book. Some of these concepts are so heady for sometimes, like you were saying, they're so dense. You really create a way that people can digest this and really understand it, especially the Western mindset. But again, that's your role. You're the East meets West consciousness. Thank you again. And is there anything else you'd like to leave our audience with before we go?
No, just get the book. That would support me and the spreading of this knowledge and of also improving your consciousness. And I would definitely get the hardcover version because it's just beautifully designed. I think the paper, the graphics, it's this luxuriant experience. It's one of those books where
it's gorgeous.
There's energy transmission when you hold the physical copy. I hope you all enjoy the book. Thank you very much, Jake, for having me. I'm really honored and blessed to be on your show.
Okay. Well, thank you, Vish. Please hold through the outro music, and everyone go to the website, vishchatterji.com. It will point you in the right direction. The book, coaching. Listen to how incredible this human is. Coaching, readings. You get the most in-depth reading you can possibly imagine. That's there available for you if you go to that website. And of course, we will see you next week, Midnight on Earth.